right, welcome everyone back to another episode of Essential Viewing. This is episode 4. We took a brief hiatus over the past few weeks because we've all been very busy with midterms and interviews and kind of being lazy. But we finally pulled our shit together and we're back this week. Chris picked the film, so Chris, why don't you give us a rundown on what you picked?
All right. Yeah, it's good to be back, and it's even better to be back with such a great film. So the film for this week was The Master, written and directed by Paul Thomas Anderson, starring Philip Seymour Hoffman, Joaquin Phoenix, and Amy Adams. Now, I'd like to hear someone else's opinion on this. Let's start with Cole.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
Do you know how long? I know you mentioned that Paul Thomas Anderson had this idea for this film 15 years before he actually
Something like that.
Do you know how long it took him to write and film the movie?
I think, if I remember correctly, I think he wrote this while he was shooting There Will Be Blood, actually. Okay. Yeah. Oh. I think he wrote this film
in his spare time while he was making another movie.
Yeah, I think he wrote this while he was shooting There Will Be Blood.
Time while you're making.
So, but do you know how long it took to film? Like how many days or?
How long it took to film? That's a good question. I'm not sure.
I thought this was like one continuous take, kind of like Birdman.
No.
Well,
no.
I mean, let's say standard movies take 90 days to film. I'll say that I found it very impressive that Paul Thomas Anderson was able to shoot a film that felt as long as it took to shoot it. So anyway, that's my opinion on this film. It was agonizingly long. I told Chris right afterwards if you could tell how I was passive aggressively checking my phone for the time every about 10 minutes. But I actually kind of played down. I did actually enjoy this film in a certain capacity. I enjoyed some of the thematic elements underneath it and the commentary it was making on kind of how we as humans, kind of philosophical commentary later on. We can discuss that later. I don't want to get into that too much in the kind of the brief synopsis of brief comments on what we all thought. So I'll pass it over to Bryce and see what Bryce thought.
All right. So at the beginning, I was like really invested. I was like, "Oh, this is pretty cool." And then you get to this scene where Joaquin Phoenix time travels.
What?
Or
I didn't see that.
Was that when you were dreaming?
No, he time travel. That's what he called it, right?
It's
no. Paul Thomas Anderson's travel back to your other body or whatever.
Whoa.
Oh, okay. I think
what were you drinking? Ginger beer?
He said we have all these different bodies through time or whatever.
Oh yeah, that was just
and then he uses his quote unquote hypnosis to move him back in time.
Yeah.
So the first time that happened, that was intense. That scene between Joaquin Phoenix and the other guy. Or they're oh, blah, 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 blah. That was really good.
Yeah.
And then, I fell asleep.
For
an hour or so.
No, then some other stuff happened. And then there's that one dude made that comment, if Philip Seymour Hoffman's son, was sleeping. And he's like, wake up, you're going to miss something. And he's like, no, I'm not going to miss anything.
That's
when I woke up, I was like, oh shit, I missed some stuff. Wait, I didn't miss anything. Awesome. So the movies keep happening. And then I realized why this movie was bad. So, because I didn't miss anything while I was asleep. I woke up and the same thing was still happening.
The movie gave an explanation.
Basically, Philip Seymour Hoffman does some stuff. Somebody makes fun of him. Joaquin Phoenix beats that guy up.
Beats the shit out of him.
Philip Seymour Hoffman gets angry at him. Then they kind of break up. And then they get back together. And then the same process happened 3 more times.
They're a shitty high school relationship.
And then the movie ended.
All right, we'll get into the details of the plot. We'll get into the
I like building up to the first time that happened. Okay, this is a good story going here. Then all that happened. Good. Fun to watch. I like it.
Nice.
But then it just repeted that.
That's okay. I like
it.
This.
Repeated that twice.
I enjoy this.
And then I was like, oh, why would they do the same thing again and again? And then that was bad.
All right. So, Chris, go ahead.
Tell you on this film. An absolutely beautiful film, first of all. And I think that, the plot... I was talking to a friend about this movie actually earlier today. And, he said Paul Thomas Anderson does nothing he needs to do something for the audience sometimes. And I said to him, no, he shouldn't do anything for the audience. You know, the best film,
the naked ladies.
The best film is made out of selfishness. You know, the great filmmakers, you know, of our time and of any time, they make films for themselves. They don't make films for audiences.
That's why you hate Marvel movies.
They make films for themselves. They don't do anything for the audience. They don't try and relieve the audience from the agony. You know, and that's what that's what I really loved about this film.
The best filmmakers are fucking sadists. Like, they're sitting there and they're like, they sit and watch the audience like clawing their eyes and they're like jerking off in the corner of the theater. Like, yeah.
That's what I loved about this film, though. No compromise.
What about
Paul Thomas Anderson?
Amy Adams jacked
off.
That was weird.
Anderson. Oh yeah.
Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Paul Thomas Anderson.
It wasn't actually Paul Thomas Anderson moaning in the background.
He had a clear vision for this film, and he saw it through to reality with no compromise. And I think that the end result was something very beautiful and something with a very very sort of meaningful plot. You know, if you do enough digging, you know, maybe on the surface it wasn't seen like that, but if you do enough digging, which is what we're going to be doing,
you'll eventually strike oil.
Yeah. Sick references, bro. Your references are out of control.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I guess I'll say I agree with you. The film is beautiful. As my sick references alluded to, it's the color palette and the look of the film is very similar to There Will Be Blood, which makes sense. I mean, Paul Thomas Anderson directed both of them. From what you said, Chris, like he was writing The Master as he was filming There Will Be Blood. So his visual presence is very distinguishing in all of his films, and just that shot of the ocean, like as it's tracking the wake of whatever boat he's on, like I think that's awesome. Like you said, going to this movie, like almost every single shot you could have as a wallpaper, you could print it off, and I think that's very true. Like there's some really, really great just like shots in this movie, and I really enjoyed that. The ending, I didn't want to bring a shovel to a movie with me, so like I don't know how much digging I'm going to do to see the meaning of the ending. I didn't like the ending at all. I actually thought it was very similar to the movie in general. I thought was very similar to There Will Be Blood, even though this felt like it was like 6 hours long. It was still a half hour shorter than There Will Be Blood.
Had like a plot that went through the entire movie.
Let's talk about the plot. I think we can all agree this movie was visually beautiful. Let's talk about the plot of it.
Obviously all the actors, the actors were really good.
The more sleep inclined among us believe that there was not a plot.
5 hours of sleep last night. So.
Yeah, 5 hours of sleep during this movie too.
So let's talk about it.
Lost time.
Let's talk about it. So
all right, go for it.
You know, we have Freddie Quell, you know, Joaquin Phoenix's character. He's just been, discharged from service, in the military after World War II, and
that's what he said.
Well, no, that's what happened.
How do you know that?
That's like what happened in the movie.
Unreliable narrators, Chris.
He could have been an unreliable narrator. He was drinking. He was on something. Okay. He was under hypnosis.
Anyway, he's been discharged from service in World War II.
He decides to go fuck the beach.
And he's disillusioned. Okay, and there's an old saying that goes, if you don't believe in something, you'll believe in anything. And that's really what happens to this character. He has nothing to anchor him to his life. So nothing to give him meaning. And he falls under the spell of Lancaster Dodd and his cult. And, and he spends about probably an hour of the movie just being initiated into the cult. And this is the agony. This is the agonizing part. This is the part that's difficult to watch.
I liked that part. I didn't like afterwards.
But this is the part that... No, you missed some of the part where he's getting sort of drawn into the cult.
Yeah.
But this is the part that's hard to watch. And the thing is...
I fell asleep when they were in jail.
After that scene,
that was like
the jail scene's actually pretty awesome.
So, like, what you have here is you have him sort of being drawn in the cult. You have him, going through the processing. You have the scene where he's in the house, going from wall to wall, touching each wall, and having to describe what the wall feels like. And he starts describing the wall as feeling like a mountain, or feeling like a prairie, or feeling like barbed wire. And obviously...
Yeah, that was really good. But obviously, after that, nothing happened anymore.
Well, here's the thing. Obviously, he sees that, he knows, everyone knows that Lancaster Dodd is full of shit, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's obvious.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Everyone knows this. But the idea is, and the central idea that's anchored in this movie is that this character needs to find meaning from somewhere.
Lancaster Dodd? Or?
No, Freddie Quell.
Quell.
He needs meaning from somewhere, right? He's drinking paint thinner and motor oil. Right? And
the ultimate college experience. Yes. That's what they put in the WAP at all the parties.
And he's bouncing around random jobs, starting fights with customers. He has no direction in life. And Lancaster Dodd is able to give him that direction. So despite the fact that he knows that Dodd is full of shit, he still is willing to latch onto his cause because he sees that he can find meaning there. And by the end of the movie, he's when he goes back to visit Doris and sees that she's left him for some other guy, Jim Day or whatever the guy's name was. He realizes that, I don't know if he realizes that he can find meaning on his own or if he's just not going to find it with Dodd, but he realizes that this cult is not the way to find meaning.
Oh,
so
absolutely.
he disconnects himself from the cult and he goes off to have sex with overweight British women,
Damn.
But
wow.
I believe this is a story of a man who's disillusioned with the world, who's searching for meaning, and who tries to find it in the wrong place. And it's almost a sort of a warning tale, a cautionary tale about the dangers of looking for meaning in people. And it's there's the idea of what Lancaster Dodd said in the movie. If you can find a way to live this life without serving any master, you will be the first person in the history of the world to have done that. This idea that everyone serves something, which is true. Everyone is putting their life's energy towards some goal, some purpose, and that's what that's your master. And Freddie Quell, this character, he needed a master. And he looked for that master in the wrong place, in the presence of another person, as opposed to in a goal, a purpose, a vision of what he wanted his life to be. So I think that this movie serves as a cautionary tale about looking for meaning from others instead of, from either inside yourself or from some purpose greater than yourself.
I really like that. And I think that's when I brought up earlier that I actually enjoyed the movie. That's why I enjoyed it. I like that kind of analysis of how people will try to explain anything. And I kind of interpreted the film as because it's based on Scientology, right?
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
the cult. They never explicitly say that. And I heard about that initially when the film came out, and then you brought it up again.
Yeah.
But they explain how, during the cult meetings, they are trying to explain how, you have these illnesses from past lives or anything like that. They'll try to do anything to explain their problems when they won't simply think of them as just, these things that are you, they make you. And they try to explain everything away. It's nice to get that understanding of what's wrong or anything like that. But when it comes from someone that you idolize that's full of shit, that's not good and that's not healthy. Sometimes you just have to deal with, things are the way they are, and you need to move on and progress with your life and not try to dwell on these things that happened trillions of years ago. And I enjoyed that. I actually thought it was kind of how you said how Freddie Quell was looking to gain further understanding and explanation and have a master in the form of Lancaster Dodd. But in the same regard, if you want to get that, Chris, in the same regard, Lancaster Dodd was trying to explain and get a further understanding of Freddie Quell and who this character was, who this strange man was that was going to all these ends to keep himself in a constant state of non-sobriety or anything like that. And he was just coming with all these ridiculous bullshit reasons along with his kind of idea pertaining to Scientology. And I thought that it was just an interesting take on how people will try to explain anything no matter how unqualified they are. Right. And you have to take that with a grain of salt, and you can't, sometimes you have to accept the things that what they are.
And the thing about Bryce's criticism, this idea that nothing happened for large portions of the movie, I think it's a valid criticism. The movie was ran at a very slow pace. But I think that when you think about the meaning of the movie, I think that the slow pace is actually quite justified. Because the thing is, what is he doing? He's being initiated into a cult. He's searching for meaning where there is none.
Okay.
And in the same sense, the movie is taking us along for this ride. You know, we are being initiated into the cult.
Ride.
Yes, we are going through
this slow snail-paced.
We are going through these rituals.
Hang on for the ride of your life.
But we are going
to theaters for 1 week only.
Yeah. We are going through these rituals minute by minute. All right, blow by blow. We are forced to suffer through these agonizing rituals where there is no meaning to be found. Mm-hmm. You know, I think if you were to just turn all those rituals into a montage and just make it blow by,
throw Eye of the Tiger over the top,
and cut. Maybe you'd make the film 30 minutes shorter, 45 minutes shorter. I think
it would be 30 minutes long.
Yeah, I think that you would be losing a lot there. I think that the agony that you feel when watching this movie, I think it's supposed to represent. I think that by making the viewer feel that agony, you're giving them the experience of going on an endless search for meaning down a black hole. So I think that the agony, it's rare where inducing boredom and pain in the viewer is actually beneficial to the experience. But I think this is one rare exception where in making the audience feel pain by watching the movie, you're actually enhancing the experience.
It didn't enhance their
all right,
money
that's all
they
fair enough,
made.
But like, why did like all the women's clothes just come off in that one scene?
Because Freddie Quayle is addicted to sex, or he was addicted to just like some form of
they were all on in 1 second.
That was weird.
And they were just all gone.
At first, I thought that like all the women were just naked because they wanted, like, the cult wanted them to be naked. I'm like, whoa, what's going on? Why is that woman's bush so large? but instead, it was just like a vision or a hallucination.
It could have been a vision. It could have been real.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Unreliable narrator.
What? Okay, I kind of brought this up earlier when I made my joke about jerk by jerk. But what? Like, I didn't understand the purpose of the scene where Amy Adams jerked off Philip Seymour Hoffman.
She was trying to. I understood that as her trying to assert a sort of sexual dominance over him.
Okay.
Because if you notice, she said to him, she said, "You can keep these. You can do whatever you want as long as I don't find out." She said, "Keep these ideas in your pants. It didn't work before."
Yeah.
I think what was happening with the dancing scene, I think what was going on is that maybe Lancaster Dodd had the idea of turning the cause into his sort of personal kind of orgy cult, right?
All right, fair enough.
All right.
I mean, if I were in that situation, like,
and I think that the scene where his wife jacked him off was sort of her saying, like, you can have sex with whoever you want to in the cult, but don't turn this into a
bang a fest.
Yeah, because that will
Bangitology.
Yeah, that will it will be counterproductive and it will break down the unity of the cult.
I understood that. I understood that the actual act of like stimulating his penis was meant as sexual domination. But
oh, really?
I didn't stimulating his penis.
Yes, but I didn't understand why she did that in the first place, because it didn't seem like he was being like flirtatious. Like, yes, in the scene prior, it was him dancing with all the naked women, but that was from the perspective of Freddie. Like, the women weren't actually naked. He just seemed like he was kind of like this cool guy, like dancing around and like.
Why did he sing so much anyway?
I don't know. It turned into a musical at some point, and it was weird. Like,
I think that it's the because his singing. I think that it sort of has a meaning though. Like, his singing was not good, right?
It's better than me.
Well, it was pretty bad, right? But when you're this leader, I think that's trying to show us that when you're the leader of a cult, you can do whatever the fuck you want, and the people who are in the people who are in the cult they're gonna go with it, and anything you do is going to
laugh at all his shitty jokes.
Yeah, anything you do is going to elevate your status. If you tell a joke, they'll laugh and they'll say he's a funny guy. Yeah. If you sing, they'll dance and they'll say he's a great entertainer. It's building. I think the purpose of that scene was to build his status.
Okay.
As the leader of this cult, but someone who has the people are so invested in him that he can. Whatever he does to entertain them or no matter the quality of it, they're still going to love him. They are fully brainwashed.
So maybe his wife's precaution or her was a precautionary hand job to her husband because she predicted that like this power might go to the head of his head and the head of his penis, and you come down to like she's like, oh, I better do this now, but like be proactive about this, and like also,
what happened to their little kid? In the first scene on the boat, Amy Adams had like a little kid.
Did she?
And I thought that was like his son, and like he kind of disappeared for the rest of the movie.
Was she pregnant, or did she?
She was pregnant. She was
pregnant the entire movie.
She was pregnant because like in the scene when she was naked, like she was very obviously pregnant. But like,
and, like she had a little kid with her.
I don't remember
the first scene on the boat.
Also, what was the point of I don't know if this is a hallucination by Freddy, but like when Clark's wife, Dodd's daughter, went up to him and like started fondling him like during his speech, and like that went nowhere later on, like absolutely nowhere, except for maybe when they were playing Pick a Point and the Salt Flats.
Okay, what was Pick a Point?
That was great. That was like,
I think,
oh my god,
it's just running.
It was
one direction
stupid.
aimlessly.
That's what it was. It was. They had money in their budget for Philip Seymour Hoffman to ride a motorcycle in the Salt Flats of Utah.
Look at some sweet shots in Utah.
So he was like, oh yes, this motorcycle, like sitting there, and then he comes back and like, well, that was dumb. And then Freddy hops on.
Was that Philip Seymour Hoffman recognizing how useless his like cult is? Like,
yes.
Well, I think if you think about
I'm going to represent my cult by just driving
what
one
had Freddy
direction
just gone
aimlessly.
through there? Okay, now why they were playing that game? Like why they were playing that game in the first place? I don't know. You know, like I don't know why they were playing Pick a Point.
It doesn't make any sense.
But I think that if you think about what Freddy had just been through in that moment, he'd just been through that horrible initiation. You know, he had Amy Adams reading to them like, you know, oh, lick my cunt, fuck, like that horrible, like awful, like poem. He just had to go and like touch like all those walls all that time. He had to do those one-on-one stare-down sessions with Clark. He just been through all that shit, right? Mm-hmm. And now I think that moment represented a sort of like a breaking free for him, where he started to realize, why am I doing this, right? And in the motor, he escapes, right, on the motorcycle. Mm-hmm. So I think this is the moment where he breaks free. I think the thing you have to understand about Paul Thomas Anderson's sort of storytelling is that he switches back and forth between the more sort of linear kind of blow-by-blow, fact-based storytelling, mm-hmm. you know, the more traditional storytelling, to this more sort of visual, sort of emotional storytelling.
Okay.
That, you know, this is something you see in a lot of his movies. You know, I know you guys haven't seen Inherent Vice, but Inherent Vice is almost all that kind of storytelling. Where it's not about the story itself, but more about the imagery, the emotions, the ideas that present where the story, in the way the story is presented. Okay. So I think that this scene represents it's not so much that if you try and fit it into the rest of the story in a linear sort of fashion, it maybe doesn't make sense. Why are they playing Pick a Point, right? But I think if you think about it as a sort of moment, this is the moment where after going through that horrible initiation, Freddy now feels a need to break free. And how can we do this visually? He's riding off into the desert on a motorcycle.
Stupid method.
That was almost the end of the movie, though. That wasn't right after the initiation.
Yeah, it was.
The initiation took a long.
The initiation was about 45 minutes.
But that was like the end of the movie.
It's more like 6 hours.
Pick a Point.
But anyway, I think this is something I don't think we've done before. But I want to go down the line and talk about like what our favorite either aspect or scene. I think favorite scene of the whole movie, because there were a few kind of gems hidden in the diamonds in the rough here. So Chris, why don't we start with you, since you've seen it twice?
Yeah,
Chris liked the sex scene.
No, I think my favorite moment in the movie was
God damn it.
I think my favorite moment was probably
when Paul Thomas Anderson's arm reaches out of the TV with the 3D and like pulls out your own eyeballs.
Yes.
There were a few moments I liked that. I liked when I liked the moment where Dodd is hunched over the typewriter writing, and that sort of bass music is playing, the doom doom, and then like Amy Adams is like, we have to launch an attack, or we have to the only way we can defend ourselves is by attacking. It's this sort of really kind of build up moment right before they Quell and Clark
go to the desert and
right before they go and beat up John Moore in his hotel room.
Yeah,
I liked that moment. I liked the moment at the end when Philip Seymour Hoffman he says, if we meet in the next life, you will be my sworn enemy and I'll have no mercy. And he says, if you go, I never want to see you again. And when he talks about living life without a master, and I liked that moment there at the end of the movie. So yeah, just a lot of moments I liked.
Okay.
It's hard. There weren't really many moments I didn't like.
Oh, wow, that's impressive.
All right, if I had to pick one scene besides like the end, like the credits,
when the credits rolled,
I would say like back at the very beginning when what's his face was like working as the photographer, and like he was shoving the lights in the guy's face.
Yeah, that was pretty.
They just kind of like a fist fight. That was entertaining.
I enjoyed that scene. I think my favorite scene is the first one-on-one that Freddy has with Dodd, where like he says, if you blink, we'll start over.
Oh, I would say that's the best scene.
That was incredible. Like that, I absolutely like. I was trying to not blink during that whole time, and it was great. You could see even though Joaquin Phoenix wasn't blinking, and he was supposed to he was trying to focus on not blinking that scene. You could see kind of the emotion and the distress in his face as he was focusing on that and trying to talk about all these hard things, like how he slept with his aunt 3 times, like whenever. And it was, I thought that was really impressive. I think a second to that would be the jail scene when they're literally Joaquin Phoenix literally destroys the toilet bowl and then starts taking his clothes off. And kicks the divider
banging
between
his
their
head
cells.
on the bunk bed.
It's just so intense and it's really, really well done. And it was just very impressive. And then when Dodd and Freddy go back and was fuck you, back and forth. I thought that was great.
Another thing I enjoyed is just the whole sort of the religion that Paul Thomas Anderson sort of crafted. I like the sort of rhetoric, man is more than an animal. Man is not controlled by his emotions.
Okay,
I liked that, the whole sort of fake religion that they kind of invented for the film.
I understand that, but what I got out of that was that Dodd wasn't an animal, and he said that because Freddy farted, he was an animal. So does Dodd just not fart? That's what I got out of that.
He
scene.
didn't in the entire movie.
I know he didn't in the movie.
So we have to assume that he never does.
Kind of like how Kim
Jong-un
doesn't shit.
Yeah, he only pisses excellence. No, he just doesn't fart. That's what I got out of that. But anyway, I think that's good for analysis.
Let's talk about our ratings.
Okay. Anyway,
Cool.
I think. I guess ratings. You want me to start off with this?
Yeah.
Well, I'll do my double rating scale again. For the first one, I'm gonna go on actual length of a film versus the sensory length of the film.
I'm gonna give this gallons of paint thinner or something.
Gallons of paint thinner? No, I think I'm gonna do. It's gonna be 12 surgical, rusty spoon removed eyeballs out of 10 for agonizingly long and painful. I actually thought the first half of the movie was actually pretty well paced and not terribly boring, but then once it really slowed down once it hit the end. And then I think overall quality of the film, I really liked thematic elements. I didn't love this movie, especially from the agonizing length or sensory length, I guess. So I'd probably give this 6 out of 10. I enjoyed some scenes. There were some great scenes. It was visually stunning. But it's definitely a Paul Thomas Anderson movie, and so far I haven't seen one that I've absolutely loved. And the master didn't change it for me. So, Bryce?
I would say the movie should have been called The Master of Shit.
Very articulate.
Well crafted statement.
As far as the movie I want to watch, I'd give it a 4 out of 10. As far as an actual movie, it's an 8 out of 10.
There you go.
So
that's a good scale.
Yeah. That's where I'm at.
I think I'd rather watch There Will Be Blood again instead of this.
I definitely like There Will Be Blood a lot more because it had an ongoing story.
Okay.
Chris?
I thought that the film was really a masterpiece. I think it's one of the. I would definitely consider this film to be essential viewing. I would consider it one of the films that sort of defines. If you ask me to define my taste in film, I would definitely use this film as an example.
It wasn't very dark and gritty.
I believe that the sort of agony of the film was really. I think about it, getting initiated into a cult would not be a fun experience.
No.
So I don't think a movie about that should be fun either. I think that Paul Thomas Anderson he did not compromise in this film, and I think that his vision of this post World War II sort of kind of sense of being lost and sense of searching for meaning in dark places was really sort of beautifully
I really did feel
there.
that like Paul Thomas Anderson's vision was really ham-fisted.
Not at all.
To me.
Not at all. Not at all.
I just felt
that's my catchphrase, by the way.
Well played,
but no, not at all.
Vision, it was too obvious. It was just ham-fisted.
And I think you stack this vision and this story on top of fantastic performances from the entire cast.
Yeah,
fantastic performances, beautiful cinematography. But I mean, you don't expect
if there would have been one more fantastic performance, they could have called it fantastic.
This was nominated for all the lead actors were nominated for best.
There were only
actor,
3 nominations. If you would have got 4,
best actor, best supporting actor, best supporting actress. So I think you take the performance, you take the cinematography. I don't expect anything less from Paul Thomas Anderson than world class cinematography. I think you put all that together, and I would have to give this film a 9.75 out of 10, just short of perfection.
Why was it not perfect?
Perfection is not a quantifiable thing.
So that's your high. That's the highest we're ever going to give a movie.
No.
Oh.
All right.
But a 9.75.
Okay. So I think in closing, we already did kind of do our conclusions, but we're going to talk a little briefly about our kind of format switching up for the podcast. It's been a while. We're going to stay on top of our game, though. We're kind of out of the woods for finals and interviews, hopefully. But we're going to stick with the pick system. So Bryce has the pick for next week. And Bryce, did you think of something yet?
So earlier we were talking about movies that are really hard to watch. And originally I was going to pick something that's A Happy Time. But I'm gonna give Chris exactly what he wants. Next week we're going to be watching Requiem for a Dream.
Oh,
God. I don't think any movies we've watched before have actually been essential viewing. This movie is 100% essential viewing. Everyone that's living should have watched this at one point in their life. So that's what we're going to be watching next week.
I'll be honest, I thought you were going to say, when you said I'm going to give Chris exactly what he wants, I thought you were going to pick Bronson.
Shy of exactly what Chris wants.
On top of that, we're also going to be watching kind of movies like a way that we all collectively want to watch, and we'll probably throw in a podcast here and there out of the loop. So tomorrow we're going to the beautiful Sundance 608 in Hilldale, just outside of Madison, Wisconsin, to watch both The Martian and Sicario. Yeah. And we'll probably do a podcast after one or both of those films. And then we intend to watch Beasts of No Nation.
The Netflix original.
Just came out today.
On Sunday.
Starring Idris Elba, who is an international badass.
Oh, yeah. He's also a DJ.
He is.
And, he's just pretty awesome. Yeah. But we're gonna do that.
Hopefully the next James Bond.
Yeah, that'd be. I think that'd
Spectre,
be pretty badass.
Starring Christoph Waltz and Daniel Craig.
Hopefully
might be the next James Bond. Which would be awesome.
And also, I have a special surprise coming in the future for our viewers.
Oh.
Something that I think everyone is looking forward to.
I don't even know.
So stay tuned for the next 3 episodes. I'll be announcing a special surprise.
I know the special surprise.
Somewhere it's coming. It's coming, and it's gonna be great. It's gonna be fantastic. So stay tuned for that.
All right, I think we're all good, guys. Unless you can think of anything else.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening.